Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Boston Straight Shooters. I'm your host for the evening, Steve, aka Negative Ned. Whoops, that's incorrect. Hold on one second. That's why is that like that? Um, Give me one second. That is not correct. White Chocolate Hope is wrong. Give me a minute to fix that. I don't know why that happened. All right, let's do this. Okay. Well, I guess for this evening, I'm White Chocolate Hope. That's an alias I use on box seats. I'm not sure what happened there, but let's just leave it for now and have some fun. And let's kick it off. This is the show where we talk about the Bruins, the Celtics, the Patriots, and the Red Sox. Frank is away on business, so he will not be joining us this week. So it's up to me to hold down the fort. And we're going to get started talking about the Patriots because they made a surprise move that neither of us saw coming. They made a trade, and they traded Joe Milton to the Dallas Cowboys, along with a seventh-round pick for a fifth-round pick in return. And I can tell you right now, I am definitely not happy about that. I'm sure Frank is not either, and I'm not going to put words in his mouth because he's not here. But as I have said in some previous podcasts, Frank has the angry emojis on speed dial. When that trade came across, I got a slew of those. So I think it's pretty safe to say he's not happy with the deal. Um, I don't understand what the thought process is there and why they are against developing these talented young running quarterback type guys. And I'll say the kid's name escapes me from last year, Cunningham, that got traded to Baltimore. Or got picked up from the practice squad by Baltimore. And so it is extremely frustrating, to say the least, that they're not willing to keep this guy and give him a shot to compete as the backup. And I've heard all kinds of stuff on sports radio all week long about, he thought he could overtake Drake May and he thought he could start. And, he wanted to go to a place that he had a chance to be a starter. And I heard some other stuff about how Josh Dobbs, the backup that signed here, wanted kind of like a guarantee that he was going to be the backup. So that could have played a role in it too. And then I heard some other stuff about they're accommodating Drake May because they don't want to have the same situation they had last year with Bailey Zappi. When Mac Jones was here, and have all the the Zappy chants and all that nonsense a couple of years ago. Sorry, not last year, 2 years ago. Look, I don't see why you couldn't keep Milton around. And maybe he's not happy, but it's up to Vrabel to manage that and be like, hey, look, you're going to be here, and this is how it's going to be, and do your job. And if you don't, then then we'll figure out something else. But I mean, I understand why they drafted him last year because they didn't have enough quarterbacks on the roster. I'm just a little bit stumped how come they are not willing to invest in this guy at least through some of the exhibition season to see what other teams' quarterback situations look like. And maybe you have a shot at getting a little bit more than a fifth-round pick for him. And I understand that there was a boatload of talk about getting a third round pick. and, kind of shame on us for buying into the hype, so to speak, because he only played that one last game against the scrubs for the Bills and did pretty good. So the consensus league-wide is that Joe Milton is not really all of that. That's why they only got a fifth-round pick back. And so I guess, there's two things. There's two schools of thought. If they put him on the practice squad, they run the risk of losing him for nothing. Somebody else can scoop him up. So I get that if they don't want to keep him on the active roster later on when it comes down to it. Or again, and they, I wish they could have got more from him. I think they should have been able to at least get a fourth-round pick. Maybe a third-round pick was too much, but look, I think that it's probably pretty good that if they think that there's going to be some kind of controversy or Milton's going to be an unhappy camper, then get him out of here and get the crap out. Because last year, if you remember, there was some of that in camp under Gerard Mayo with Matthew Judon being unhappy with his contract and whatnot. So I just think that, even though Vrabel can probably handle it, the less distractions and less BS he has to deal with is better. We talked about that all last year under Gerard Mayo. Less BS is more. He's going to want guys that are focused, committed. They're not going to be a pain in the butt, and they're going to come in and they're going to be, team first. And if Joe Milton's not going to do that, then I don't think that they have much choice but to get rid of him. And it's unfortunate. Now, the funny / weird part about it is that he goes to a situation where the starting quarterback is locked up for I forget how many years with Dak Prescott being the starter. Now, he does have a history of getting injured, and I don't know what their depth chart looks like. So maybe there's a better chance of him having a chance to be the backup there. But now I'm curious to see what they do in the draft. I'm pretty sure they're going to have to draft another quarterback, whether it's 6th, 7th round, 5th round, whatever, or they're going to have to sign another guy to be the third guy. To be honest with you, at this point, I don't know if they can just sign another, lower level veteran guy that knows he's going to be the third string guy, that knows he could fall on the practice squad. I think the more veterans we can bring in, the better. I don't think we want to be in a situation where, and look, I'm nothing against Milton. If he was still here, I would be fine having him. Let's say May gets hurt, because that potential is definitely going to exist because of the way he runs. And so you got Dobbs as the backup, and let's say he has to start majority of the games. And then you have Milton as the backup to the he's the backup. Well, now he's not here. You draft another quarterback. He's a rookie. He's got to come in, and everybody's going to say, "Well, they got another Tom Brady in the 6th round." That's pie in the sky. That only happens once in a blue moon. That's unicorn stuff. But if they had another veteran guy that knew how to play, and I'm not going to say Brian Hoyer because he's retired, but a guy like that, a guy that's been around maybe 5-10 years, and maybe he has some familiarity with Josh McDaniel's system, and bring him in and put him in as the third string guy just to have depth on the roster. I think that's better for the situation that they're in when you already have Drake May going on his 2nd year. I don't think you want to be in a situation where the backup gets hurt and you got another rookie starting. Like I said, if it was Joe Milton, he's already got a year under his belt here, and then get the tutelage from McDaniels, I would have been fine with that. But I don't want them to draft another guy in the 6th, 7th, 8th, or whatever round, and then have that kid try to learn. And there's a situation where he's actually the backup, unless he's. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's a strong quarterback class this year. Last year was really strong, and I don't know the depth of the quarterbacks. I haven't done any research on any of that, but I will over the next couple weeks because the draft is coming up in 2 weeks. So I'll have some time to do a little bit more in-depth dive by position to figure out. There's mock drafts all over the place. So there's guys the Patriots can target, and maybe we'll put a small list together, maybe like a top 2 or 3 at each position, just to give a half a clue. And look, everybody's talking about the top 4 or 5 picks because the Patriots are 4th, and now it's they don't have a shot at Travis Henry anymore because the Giants are going to take him, and maybe they won't also have Carter. The defensive end won't be there either, and so what are they going to do? Are they going to trade out? Look, there's a lot of options, and I don't want to dive too much into it right now. I just think that it's obvious that Hunter and Carter are pretty much the top 2 guys after Cam Ward. He's the consensus #1 guy that's going to go to Tennessee, and then after that, the next few picks are a crapshoot. I will say if Carter and Henry are gone, Travis Hunter, I'm sorry, not Henry. If those 2 guys are gone, then I wouldn't be upset if the Patriots traded back, somewhere still in the top 10, 7, 8, 9, whatever, and they got an extra pick in the first round, and then they could add 2 positions that they truly need and draft for need and stop, not just draft the best player available. I heard some scuttlebutt about them taking the running back Genti. They don't need him. I don't want to see them take him. Some guys I talk to are like, Stevens is terrible. He fumbles too much. They should get this kid and put him in. He's a game breaker. But listen, that sign that guy for $9 million. I don't think he's going anywhere. And that's not a true desperate need for the Patriots right now. Their desperate needs are obviously left tackle. You could throw in defensive line or tight end as far as like depth. And I think that with Diggs coming in, they're not as desperate to draft another wide receiver like they did last year, where they took the two rookies they took last year, and those names are escaping my head right now. Jalen Polk and Baker and Polk. I really kind of don't want to see them take him because I don't want to. I don't want to. Sorry, I don't want to. I don't want to see them make a mistake there. All right, what is this? Let's see. I'm getting an error message here. Okay. All right. Apparently, there's an issue with the feed to Facebook Live. All right. I guess I don't know if we're back or not. I guess so. We'll just have to keep waiting and see. I'll just keep talking. We'll see what happens. For the time being, par for the course. Nothing can be smooth. Let's see. Brand new phone, still can't get on. All right, let me see if there's a way for me to. You know what? Let me work on something, Denise. I'll see if I can send you the link another way so you can get on if you want. Give me 1 minute. Give me a minute. All right, so. Okay, I do want to switch gears a little bit before we, the time is running here. I got to watch this real quick. I do want to talk about the voluntary, quote unquote, voluntary workouts that the Patriots are going to be starting. Mike Vrabel had a funny comment about it. Somebody asked him about whether they're mandatory or whatever. He said, "I write a letter voluntarily to the players to make sure that they voluntarily read it and voluntarily show up. I think that's pissa. That's funny as hell. And listen, new coach, new camp, everything's new. Everybody should want to be there, and the only way that they should not be there, in my opinion, is if they have some kind of injury, or let's say they're in a situation like Christian Barmore, he's got the blood clot thing going on, he can't participate, but maybe he can still come to the building. I don't know. I mean, those are things that that's up to those guys. But I would think that everybody would want to be here, and I don't know what the head count is yet, but I do know that the first day of workouts is on April 7th because I picked up the schedule so I could follow along. The voluntary mini camp is April 22nd to the 24th. So there's going to be a little bit of activity before the draft. That kind of sets the wheels in motion for how things, who Vrabel thinks is serious about being on board as far as the voluntary part of it. And then you have the OTAs, which is the organized team activities, is May 19th, 20th, 22nd, 27th, 28th, 30th, June. So it's basically the last 2 weeks of May and the first week of June, somewhere in there. And then the actual mandatory minicamp is June 9th through the 11th. And then training camp usually starts in July, and it's usually around, I don't know, the third week, like the 23rd or something or whatever. I don't know, 27th. It's somewhere in the third week, I think, because they start playing exhibition games like the first week of August or whatever. So there's a lot going on, or a lot that will be going on, at least in the next week or two. So let's see. In 2 weeks, when they have the voluntary minicamp and we're back on here, we will have an idea, probably at that time, who's missing, who showed up, did everybody attend, that whole 9 yards. And so we'll see what happens. I just know that I think at this point I'm pretty excited about the direction of the team, and I got to make sure to be careful to dial it back a smidge, because I don't think they're in 10 or 11 win territory like Frank does. I think they're in 8-9 win territory. They're in the sniff the playoffs, possibly, only because the mistakes they were making last year, they just can't have those mistakes this year, and I think they will be better at not making those dumb mistakes that cost them games, winnable games. This is key, because we addressed it every week that they lost a game that was winnable. They were making bad mistakes during key moments of winnable games, and so that's why they ended up with 4 wins instead of 7 or 8, and they easily could have had 7 or 8. They boo-booed that, and hopefully that won't happen this year. And Vrabel, I'm sure, again, the attention to details. The coaching staff is more of a veteran staff with the guys they have here, and it should be way better than it's been. And so we'll see. Like I said, we have 2 weeks until the draft, and maybe next week we'll touch on some rankings and some positions. And if you guys have any questions during the week, throw them up on the group there, and we'll see if we can answer them beforehand, before the draft comes to fruition. All right, I'm behind now, obviously, because I can't stop talking. So we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about the Bruins now. We're going to talk about them because they actually had a 9-game losing streak. It got snapped. They finally won. Their ninth loss was to Montreal 4-1. That was again kind of a listless performance. They just looked out of whack. But the next game against Carolina, they beat them 5-1. It was one of the better games that they've played this year. I won't say it's their best game, but it's a complete 180 from some of the garbage we saw during the 9-game losing streak. The 7-2 beatings and 13 shots in a game and all that nonsense. I mean, they beat a team. They beat a team that. They beat a team that's been an Achilles heel for them for the last 3 to 5 years. They haven't been able to get over the hump. They've had a pretty poor record against them. So that was encouraging to see that, and totally unexpected, totally out of the blue. They played a good game, and then the next game, they proceeded to revert back to the trash. Against Buffalo, they lost 6-3, and again, just some bad hockey, bad positioning, bad goals given up. They just looked a little bit out of sorts here and there. So I don't know. I think again, it's 2 steps backwards to get 1 step forward. So I get it. They have a lot of new guys, a lot of new young guys. They're integrating into this. And then last night they stomped New Jersey 7-2, which I didn't see coming at all, because again, that's a team, when they play each other, usually it's 2-1 in overtime, or 3-2, or some usually close, ridiculous slog. And I totally forgot they were on. I was watching the Red Sox last night. So I forgot about them in the Celtics last night. I completely spaced, so I didn't see any of it. But from the highlights I saw, they look good. We had a few milestones. We had Fraser Minton getting his first goal as a Bruin, which is good to see. Like I said last week, I actually did get to see him down in Providence, and he's a good young player. I think they Denise, bear with me. I'll see what I can do about that. So like, he looks good. I think Middlestat scored a goal in one of the games. And of course, the sports radio guys have to dog him because he's a -12 or whatever it is since he came here. But you got to realize how bad the whole team is. It's not just him. So I'm not looking at plus minus with him. I'm looking at, can he make plays? Can he be a number 2 center? Can he be on the power play? Can he step up and be, kind of like the David Krejci? Again, we're not comparing them and saying he's David Krejci. I'm just saying they need a guy like that, and they need Elias Lindholm, to step up and be the number 1 center, and some encouragement there with him being put between Pastrnak and Geekie, and that line having some success over the last couple games, more to what we wanted to see when they signed him to that contract. So look, there's going to be some ups and downs. I think there's some encouragement there a little bit. I will say also, another milestone. Morgan Geekie got his 30th goal on an absolutely gorgeous pass from Pastrnak along the right wing boards. Found him all alone in front. And so look, Negative Ned is not afraid to eat crow. It's not going to be the first time, and it's not going to be the last. And look, early in the year, I dogged Geekie because he wasn't doing squat, rightfully so. I got to get these reminders today during the day about, how do you like Geekie now? He got 30 goals. It's like, hey, the first 20 games, you know how many goals he had? Friggin' 2. Okay, so I rightfully called him out. He wasn't doing squat. And so if you want to say that the coaching change helped him, in his last 54 games, he's got 28 goals. That's a goal every other game. So if he, you know, I'm not saying it's the whole reason. He's playing with Pasternak. That's definitely part of the reason. But, you know, it's a silver lining, and it's the first time. He's got career high last year of 17 goals, and he's got career high now of 30. And, you're not just going to sit there and trying to rub it in my face because he scored 30 goals. I'll eat crow and say, look, I did dog him earlier in the year. He wasn't doing nothing. 2 goals in 20 games, not cutting it. So I credit him with, stepping up. I'll tell you this, he has done something that Charlie Coyle couldn't do. Right. And so, again, I'll give credit where credit is due. I'm not afraid to come on here and eat crow. But I call it as I see it. The whole idea of this is to shoot straight, and I will, and I'll shoot straight when I'm being negative about it, and I'll shoot straight when I'll eat crow and say, hey, look, I was wrong, and the guy got the 30 goals. Good for him. That's what he should do. I mean, that's what we want. We want these guys to step up and score goals. I don't want them to just be stuck on, 15 goals and getting a goal every, having these hot and cold streaks like DeBrusk, where, in a 5 or 6 game span, he's got 6 goals, but then, he disappears for 2 weeks and he's got 1 goal in 14 games. That's no good. We don't need that. So, maybe the coaching change is helping him. Maybe it's the fact that he's playing with Pasternak and he's not on the third line playing with scrubs, or even on the second line, I won't say getting buried, but he wasn't playing with talented enough guys to help him. So that makes a difference, look, and now we're gonna start talking about whether they're gonna re-sign him or not. Because I believe he's a restricted free agent at the end of the year, and so I think he makes, I don't know what, I forget what he makes, but whatever it is, if he comes in and he's reasonable and he's in maybe the $4 or $5 million range for a guy that's coming off a career year, I would do that in a second, because he to me is a secondary guy. I don't want them to spend $6 or $7 million on him. He's not a proven, bona fide 30-goal scorer. I want them to use the cap space to get a guy in the $8-9 million range that I know is going to put up 30 goals a year. That guy's the top guy. Or maybe there is a secondary guy that they can get. I haven't done the research because the free agency is not close. The playoffs get ready to start, even though the Bruins aren't going to make it. I haven't had a chance to dive into who the best free agents are or who the Bruins should sign, but they're going to have 20-something million in cap space. I guarantee they're going to sign a top 6 guy, and if they do that, you can't give Geeky 7 or 8 million, or I would say 6 max tops, and hope he pans out, because the contracts that these guys want now is ridiculous. They want 7-8 years, and they want 7, 8, 9 million a year, and they want no trade, guarantees and stuff. And I'm sorry, this guy to me is not worth that yet. He hasn't done it long enough. So my answer to that is no. And again, the people are chiming at me and saying, "Well, that's the going rate now." Well, that doesn't mean you put a gun to your head and pay it. I'm sorry. Sometimes the answer should be no. And in this case, it should be no. He's not a $7 million player, in my opinion. He's just not. He's not in that range yet. He hasn't done it long enough. Now, again, if he went to arbitration, and that could be an option for him I think as a restricted free agent, other teams can send him an offer and the Bruins can match it. So if somebody else is stupid enough to offer him 7 years and $7 million, or 7 years and $8 million a year, I would not match it. Let him go. And go sign your own guy that's 7 or 8 million. That's a 30-goal scoring free agency. And I understand, because I heard earlier that this year's free agent class isn't the greatest and this and that. But regardless of whether they re-sign Geeky, they have to find a way to sign a more proven veteran that's going to play in the top 6 and provide 25, 30 goals at a minimum. Well, Denise, thank you for that, because nobody usually agrees with negative Ned. But I just feel that, sometimes they overpay and then they get stuck and they can't move a guy. Uh, and the thing you can't do is you can't fall in love with your own players. There are certain ones you should. Pasternak. You could make an argument for Swayman why they gave him the $8 million. I get those, but when you're talking about a guy that's his career high was 17 last year, he's got 30 this year, and now all of a sudden he thinks he's going to make $7 or $8 million. I'm sorry that the Bruins can't afford to tie themselves up with that kind of a hit. Uh, don't get used to it. Yeah, I know. Don't worry about that. I'm not used to it. But I also do want to mention, David Pastrnak joined some rarefied air in Bruins history. He is the third player in team history to have three consecutive 100-point seasons, and he joins only Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito as the only other two players to have at least 3 seasons or more of 100 points, which I'm surprised by that, because given the wagon that the Bruins were in the 70s, I would have thought they would have had more guys like Johnny Busick or, maybe Barry Peterson, Rick Middleton. Those kind of guys would have had 100-point seasons. But listen, this is my argument as to why, they can't trade David Pastrnak. And if they do, I'll never watch him again. And he's actually done more with less, so to speak, since the trade deadline. And so for him to still be putting up goals, he's got 41 now, and this is his. I have it here somewhere. Hold on. This is his 4th straight season with 40 goals or more. One of those years he got 61 and led the league. So look, those guys don't grow on trees. That's a guy who obviously he's making $11 million on something a year, but I applaud him. And so, now the conversation comes down to, should he be the next captain because he's leading with his play. Look, there's plenty of time to iron that out. I'm not worried about that right now. I think it's way too soon. I definitely give him 2 tons worth of credit for playing as well as he has. And I still hate, the sports radio guys for dumping on him over the turnovers. I think that's unjust, because the puck is going to be on his stick a lot. He's going to turn it over. All the superstars do. If you're telling me that they don't watch the games because, those guys don't grow on trees, you have to take some of the bad with the good. And look, he made one, a few weeks ago where it led to a goal. I'm sure he's kicking himself. Like, you're not going to beat him up over that. For all the good that he's doing, the little bit of bad, you got to live with it. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy that, his line is actually starting to look like a top line. And maybe they gain a little momentum into next season. Now they only have 3 games left. They have Thursday, tomorrow night, they have Chicago at home. And then Sunday they're playing at Pittsburgh, and then Tuesday they're playing at home versus New Jersey, and that's the end of the season for them. And so now it's just a matter of, where they're going to finish as far as the draft goes. I think they're in 5th place right now. I think they're 5th if the draft were held today. Philadelphia is just below them by 2 points, and they have 2 games in hand. So if you want the Bruins to get a better pick, A, root for them to lose, and B, root for Philadelphia to win a couple games and slide the Bruins up into the 4th spot. Now, they have a draft lottery. I don't know how many teams are in the lottery. I forget, but we can get that. I mean, the draft isn't until June. We have plenty of time to figure that out. But there is a slim chance that they could wind up with the number 1 overall pick, or at least move up from 5 or 4 to 1 or 2 or whatever. And look, they haven't been there for a long time. And it's not something you want. It's not a position you want to be in a lot. You don't want to. You don't want to be in there for 2 or 3, 4 years in a row. That's definite. You're in Buffalo Sabre territory and Philadelphia territory. Though San Jose, even Chicago. I mean, those teams are at the bottom of the barrel. You don't want to be with them the next few years. And I have a feeling that they'll find a way to work themselves out of the basement. But look, again, I'll have time to dig into what the top, picks look like, what they have a potential to get, and we'll do a deeper dive into that. And look, it's a wicked early for this, but there's an outside chance they could trade that pick, with or without someone else for, a superstar guy, let's say. I don't know who, but that's got to be an option that they would be willing to look at. They should be willing to look at, and everybody's kind of doing this because they want, they want Brady Tkachuk. Everybody would love to have him here, so I'll just use this as like a fictitious. Okay, if you're going to get Brady Tkachuk, you're obviously going to have to give up your number 1 pick this year, and you'd have to give up, some of the chips you got in a trade. And so let's say it's Fraser Minton and that other kid that they picked up that's in the the junior league tearing it up, whatever his name is, I forget now, right? And those 3 went to Ottawa for Tkachuk, and I would do that in a second, right? I mean, who wouldn't? You're getting a guy that would be that plays like a Bruin, right? So I guess what I'm getting at is, in my opinion, all options are on the table to be traded except for Pastrnak. He's the only untouchable to me on the roster. I would not put him as a part of any package, but everybody else can go. And you know what? I don't know. I'll tell you another thing I don't want them to do is I don't want them in the top 5 to take a freaking defenseman. They have enough defensemen already. They need scoring, and they need young scoring in the pipeline. And so if they're stuck at 4 or 5, wherever they're drafting, I want to make sure that they pick a guy that's going to put the puck in the net. And, historically, with the exception of Joe Thornton and Tyler Seguin and Sergei Samsonov, there was a period where, they were in the top and they weren't taking those kind of guys. So hopefully there's been some lessons learned over the years, and they'll do the right thing. Let's see what we have here. No Bergeron, Denise. No Bergeron. No Krejci replacement. All the other dumbass stuff that's going on. Pasta still shines. Hey, look. Again, full credit to Pastrnak for picking up the slack while they integrate these young guys in here. And again, and we're beating a dead horse, but a lot of people are unhappy with Don Sweeney for selling off the pieces and we're in the bottom of the barrel and blah blah. But I feel it was necessary. They didn't have enough young guys in the pipeline, and now they do. And so I'm happy that they got rid of some dead weight. I mean, again, Charlie Coyle wasn't doing nothing here. Brandon Carlo wasn't doing anything. Those guys were just dead weight to me. In their contracts, they couldn't move them. So listen, you get some younger guys and see what they can do, and then go for, round 2 next year, and we see what happens at the end of the year. So plenty of time to discuss that stuff. It's unfortunate that we're not going to be talking about playoff hockey for the Bruins because around this time of year, obviously, when both the Bruins and Celtics are in the playoffs, it's an exciting time. But you know what? Here's what it is. We'll have the Celtics to lean on until we see how far they can go. And speaking of them, I think it's time to switch gears before I run out of time. I do want to talk about the Celtics. They had a 9-game winning streak. It got snapped against Miami. Again, I did not get to see any of their games with the Red Sox and the Bruins playing. But I did follow, along with some of the box scores and some of the commentary about them, like on sports radio and stuff. So Uh, I'm going to read this real quick for Denise. She says, "There are a lot of rumblings about Sweeney getting fired, and I hope he does." Well, I brought this up with somebody not too long ago, is that who's the replacement? If you have somebody to me that, is a worthwhile replacement, you can tell me who it's going to be, and it's a good choice, I'll agree with you. Otherwise, I think he's probably going to get another year to rebuild what he started. And then next year, if they don't make the playoffs or then they have not improved, then I think he'll get fired. But still too soon for that. Stay tuned. Film at 11 on that. Let's go back to the Celtics real quick. They lost against Miami, 124 to 103. Now, I looked at the stats, and I saw 12 of 43 from three, which is 28%. That's horrible. It kind of makes me feel like they took the night off. As we're winding the season down, they only have a handful of games left. I'm guessing that, they're going to give more guys rest. They're obviously gearing up these guys. I don't want to jump ahead to tonight's game just yet. Let me go through some of these other games. The next game, they beat Washington 124 to 90. Beat the brakes off them. 24, 52, 46% from three. That's more like it, and that's more like what they're going to need going forward. They were strong on the rebounds. They out-rebounded them 62 to 32. Luke Cornett, 13 points, 14 rebounds. Al Horford, 11 points, 10 rebounds. Good game for both those guys. And then last night they beat the Knicks in overtime, 119 to 117. And, Jason Tatum made a tying shot with tying three-pointer with 2.9 seconds left to tie the game. I've been waiting to see some more of those kind of clutch shots from him. And I hope in the playoffs, if it comes down to it, that we get to see a little bit more of that, because I think that there are times where he's not making as many as you would like to see, I guess, for lack of a better way to phrase it. But because they have other guys that can shoot, and we've discussed this over the last few years, it's better that he isn't the last option every single time, because he gets double teamed, he gets forced to throw it up. With the guys that they have, excuse me, I cat knocked something over here. With the guys that they have now, everybody's a threat. So you can't just key in on Tatum. Now you have to be wary of everybody. And even if some guys are having off nights, I feel better now than I did 2 years ago, where they were all going cold at the same time. Me and Frank beat this to death. And last year they were in a situation where they didn't have that, and this year they're in the same situation, or even better, because everybody's back, and they have the option of having, everybody can make the shots. Derek White can make a three, make a clutch shot. Pritchard can make a clutch shot. Holiday can make a clutch shot. So now it's not just up to the two Jays, Tatum and Brown, to make those clutch shots. It's not forced, and it makes their odds of repeating better. It makes their odds of winning games better. And look, everybody wants the top guys want to be the man. Tatum and Brown, they both want to be the number one guy, and they want to be MVP, and they want to make all the clutch shots and all that stuff. And look, some guys just have that, and some guys don't. And I'm not going to say that those guys don't, because they do. Jaylen Brown proved it last year when he won the Eastern Conference Finals and the MVP Finals. He's definitely a clutch guy. I know for a fact Jason Tatum wants to be that guy. He wants to be known as an MVP type guy. He's talented as hell. He has it. I just, again, hope that their focus is on winning the championship and repeating, because their window might close after this year. With the new owner and the salary cap stuff. I just hope they recognize that, as much as the accolades are for, as much as the accolades are for the MVPs and all that other crap, that stuff will take care of itself. Get another ring, solidify that for your legacy. That's what we all want to see. Uh, you know, and I give Joe Mazzulla credit for pushing all the right buttons. You know, I know Frank has come on here a number of times recently and said, hey, he loves what Mazzulla's doing. He's loving the rotations. And, I looked at tonight's starting lineup, and there's no Holiday, there's no Horford, there's no Porzingis, and there's no Tatum. They're all out tonight because they're giving them rest on a back-to-back. And I looked at the lineup, and I saw Shyman, Pritchett, Cornette, Hauser, and Torrey Craig. And I'm like, who the hell is Torrey Craig? I didn't even know he was on the team. So, those are the starters, but I know that he's also he's mixing in, Nemus, Queta, and, some of the other guys on the bench, Jordan Walsh. Sorry, I almost said Jordan Poole. Jordan Walsh, so look, he's giving these guys a little bit of run before the playoffs start, and I kind of like it. Look, you got to we want Porzingis to be right. We want Tatum to be right. We want these guys to be right before the playoffs. We've been talking about it for a month. And so they're going to do it. And so after this game, I believe after this game, they only have 2 games left, Friday and Sunday at home against Charlotte. So the season's going to wind down for them. And then they're going to be off for a little more than a week, because I didn't realize that there's a little bit of a break before they do the play-in tournament. So 11, 12. So early next week, I think 2 nights they have the play-in tournament where teams 7, 8, 9, and 10 play each other. 1 game elimination to figure out who's going to be the 7th and 8th seeds. I don't have that information in front of me right now. I'm not going to do that. But by next week, I will have a better breakdown of it, because by then, hopefully we'll know who the Celtics are playing in the first round, because the first round doesn't start, the quote-unquote first round doesn't start until the 19th. So that actually hopefully will benefit the Celtics, and they'll get, a break. They get a week off just about to heal up and give some guys some rest. I know that Jaylen Brown's been playing with a sore knee. There's been some commentary about him playing through it. I don't have his exact comments, but he said that, he's playing through it and it can't get any worse, whatever it is that he's got. And, the sports radio guys did kind of like a deep dive on his minutes, and he's been playing 20, 21, 23. He's been playing low minutes. And they seem to think that part of the reason for that is because he's trying to reach the minimum of 65 games so he can qualify for first or second team NBA All-Star. And again, I hate that stuff. Excuse me. I hate that because I want them to focus on winning the championship. Now, I understand why they do it. It's because after this contract is finished, when his next contract comes around, he wants to be able to say, hey, I was first or second team NBA, X years in a row throughout my whole contract, and I didn't miss any. So they're kind of like fudging it, so to speak, for him to get to 65 games. I don't like that, but, I'm going to be in the minority, I'm sure, because now for the players in majority of the sports now, it's all about getting the money. It's all about getting the bag. It's rare for the guys to start thinking about championships till they start getting older, when they're like 30, 32. And then they realize that they've been in a bad situation. Oh, trade me out of here. Get me to a, contender. Let me play with, my friends over and, wherever. And so I kind of hate all that nonsense. It's one of the things that's kind of a turnoff, in addition to just, the 3-point, chuck and duck bombs away, boring basketball that's been going on for a while. The talent is watered down. There's too many teams. Now they're talking about adding 2 more teams. It's like, and they're talking about adding a team in Seattle where they left. And I'm like, okay, they left there. I hate when they regurgitate and go back to a place that left. Other sports do the same thing. Drives me crazy. Hockey's been to Atlanta twice. Didn't work either time. They're talking about doing. That's what I want to see, and I hope they get healthy, and hopefully, none of this is an issue, and hopefully we'll be celebrating in June again. So there's a little bit of time now for them to get some health and get right, and let's see what happens with them. All right, let me switch gears real quick to the Red Sox. Watching the time here, I'm going to run out of time. Let me switch to them because last week when we were on, I think they were 1-4. Since then, they've watching the last 2 games against Toronto in the cold. 35-degree first pitch weather last night with a wind chill like 19 or 20, whatever the hell it was. Completely stupid. I think we mentioned it last week. I hate this. Baseball starts when it's cold and ends when it's cold. It's dumb. I'm not a fan of this. I wish that they would start the season, either start it later or make sure that the teams that play in cold weather are playing in warm weather cities. They have all spring training where it's 70 and 80 down in Florida and Arizona. And then they come here and it's freaking 30 degrees. And everybody's all bundled up and they got all these scarves on and, hood stuff. And I mean, they just, I don't know. I've never been a fan of this. I don't like it. And again, it's not an excuse. Obviously, they're professionals. They're supposed to be able to handle the weather. I mean, football players play when it's 0, but baseball is not meant to be played when it's 20 degrees out. I mean, and that's the problem for me. I'm not a fan of them playing in this weather. But nonetheless, over the weekend, they swept the Cardinals. They had a good weekend. Rafael Devers finally got out of his slump. Started the season 0 for 19 with 15 strikeouts. I don't know what changed. I thought he needed to take a break or a hiatus and get his head straight. But something clicked or worked somewhere along the line, and good for him for getting himself straightened out. He went 10 for 19. He's gone 10 for his last 19. And I think he got a double in tonight's game before I came on. So, he's got his swing back, and hopefully his shoulders aren't an issue going forward. I will say though, I am not happy with their defense. They have not fixed second base yet, in my opinion. Bregman's been making errors at third. He's got 3 errors already at third base in 12 games, which, would put him on pace for 38 or 40 or whatever the stupid number is. And he's obviously not going to make that many errors. But you know what? When he came here, because he's won the Gold Glove last year, it's, he's so much better than Devers, and, you can't put Devers at third. He has to play there. And, the rookie Campbell has made 2 errors at second base. And the Red Sox leading the league with 12 errors as a team. So their errors, has not been fixed. Their defense hasn't been fixed completely yet. And I hope it does. And to be honest with you, even though he doesn't have any official errors, David Hamilton, I've seen him in the games he's played at least once per game. He's booted a ball or made some kind of gaffe at second base. I'm completely done with that guy. I don't want him at second base anymore. I don't know. I know the only reason they keep him here is because of his speed, but he shouldn't be out there, and he should definitely not be a defensive replacement for Campbell in late innings. And I saw that one game and almost lost my freaking mind. Please do something about that. Honestly, I said it from the top. Bregman should have been at second, and Devers should have been at third. And you live with Devers, making 15 to 20 errors at third base. He got better last year. He only made 12 errors in 138 games. That's a vast improvement for him. and you put Bregman at second base and shore that up and knock those stupid errors off, and I don't have to see freaking David Hamilton over there kicking the ball around, booting the ball, and making mistakes, especially late in the game. And if you really want to keep Christian Campbell batting the lineup, then put him at DH. Fix the defense and put him at DH then. I can probably only take about another week of this garbage. And actually, Bregman, he made another bad throw earlier in the game. Got lucky that the scorer ruled it as a hit and not an error because he hopped the throw. The first baseman couldn't scoop it. So, look, I don't know if it's because of the cold. I don't know if it's because, he got used to playing in Houston in a dome where, the weather's not an issue. It's turf. It's different. The hops are probably different on the dirt and the grass here. I don't know. The field is different, right? I don't know if that's part of the issue, but if that doesn't get rectified in the next week, if I'm Alex Cora, I'm pulling the plug and I'm saying, look, we got to put Devers back over there and put him at second base and at least fix this and stop the stupid, because, it's discouraging that they're still leading Major League Baseball with 12 errors. They're supposed to be better this year, not worse. So, guys, get it right and get it fixed. Bright spots. Look, Christian Campbell's, he's hitting like hell. He's a bright spot. Crochet up until last night was a bright spot. Pitched 8 shutout innings in the previous start before this. William Abreu, knocking the cover off the ball. He was hitting like 600 or whatever, or 650 for, a week and a half. He's probably cooled a tad since then, but, he's been good. He's good defensively too. I think he threw a guy out at third base, I want to say, over one of these last few games. He surprisingly won the Gold Glove last year as a rookie. I didn't see that coming at all. But now you're looking at him, as a solid right fielder. It's good to see. What they need Houck to be better, and they need Walker Buehler to be better. I know Buehler won his last start. He pitched 5 innings, but he gave up 5 runs, and the offense picked him up. You're going to have those games where you're winning 13-9, and you get that, but need more from him. Need 6 innings minimum, and 2-3 runs tops, and keep him in games. He's got to be better. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he can do that. I think Chapman's been good so far. Look, there's still going to be plenty to like. I think, again, when the weather gets better, they'll start hitting. This happens every April with them. The first 2-3 weeks of April, it's cold. It's freaking 40 degrees, 30 degrees. It's miserable. And then once we start getting, some 60s and 70s, they start heating up and it starts getting better. So, look, again, there's cautious optimism. Again, I have them in the long range view at 88 wins. They should be in the wild card hunt. That's what we want, and they should still be there. And so, for them to dig themselves out of a 1-4 start, good for them. But they got to get a little more consistency and stop the errors. All right, let me. We're going to run out of time here, so let me jump to the poll questions and the predictions. The Red Sox have 160-something games, and they played 12 games. We got 150 games to go. There's a long way. There'll be a lot more for us to talk about them as the season goes along. All right, let me find. Okay, we only had one poll question last week, and that question was, how do you feel about the Patriots trading Joe Milton to Dallas for a 5th-round pick? Horrible. Should have gotten more in return. 100%. Good. No Zappy 2.0 in the locker room. 0%. I'm a little surprised by that because I would have thought that maybe some more people would have thought that they wouldn't want the Zappy 2.0. But I think that it makes more sense that people would want the Patriots to get more from Milton. As I mentioned earlier, I think the only way they could have done that now at this point was to have him go through some training camp and go through some exhibition games and let people see him in some of those games, even if it's only 3 games they have, and make some decisions based on that and then trade for him or whatever. But maybe that's too late in the game. And again, it's a culture thing. You got Vrabel starting everything from scratch, and maybe they felt that he was going to be too much of a pain in the neck, got rid of him. So that's it for the Joe Milton experiment. Predictions. I'm going to start with Frank since he's not here. He said that the Red Sox would start winning some games and that they would be over 500. So Frank, the Swami Jr. comes through. Ding, ding, ding. They were 5-2 last week, so Frank strikes again. He said the Patriots are going to do something next week. Didn't know what it was going to be. He was right again. Ding, ding, ding. They actually made a trade and traded Joe Milton. So I don't know how he does it, but I don't have that kind of luck. Last week, I said that Devers was going to go on the deal with a mysterious illness and go to Florida to work with Big Papi. Wrong again. Still in Washington Generals territory. Prediction for this week. Prediction for next week. I think that with the Bruins season winding down, I think Joe Sacco is going to get fired at the end of the season. Sometime next week. It might not be before we come on. But I think by the end of next week, I think he's going to be gone, and they're going to be looking for his replacement. Because I have a feeling that if they have to have a new coach, they're going to want that guy in place before the draft, so they can get his input, whoever it is. And let's see. How about another? Let's see if I can go 0 for 2 and have two strikes at the prediction game here, and keep the Washington Generals streak going. Let's see. Let me think for a second. I don't have one lined up, unfortunately. I should. Let me do this. I'll try to spin Tristan Casas because he's been in a bad slump. I'm going to go on a limb and say that he starts to heat up over the next week. He's been cold. He's been bad. He's another guy that needs to get right. In addition to, Beulah and Devers last week, so he's next in line. I say I'll do a positive Pete and use I'll flip it and do a Frank and say that Tristan Casas gets out of the slump in the next week, and we'll see how that goes. All right, that's it. That's the show, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for voting in the polls. Thanks for commentary. Be sure to catch us on YouTube channel. And we'll be back next week. See ya.